Writers use only the parts of quotations they need to support their ideas. Let's practice using an ellipsis to show we have chosen to exclude words from a quotation. Make sure you have your student practice sheet out in front of you because you'll need it throughout this lesson. Let's review. When we need to take words out of a quotation, we can use the handy punctuation mark called the ellipsis. An ellipsis is 3 dots in a row that indicate a pause or make up for a missing piece of text. When we use an ellipsis to omit words from a quotation, there are a couple of rules to remember. First, we need to make sure that the sentence still flows together as a complete thought, even without the missing words. The other thing we want to keep in mind is that the author's core meaning should stay the same. In other words, we have to make sure that the revised quotation still means more or less the same thing as the original. When it comes to formatting, an ellipsis should have a space between each period, as well as a space before and after the periods. Let's look at an example. Let's say I'm writing an informational essay about getting enough sleep, and I want to include this quote. Establishing a sleep schedule, such as going to bed at 11 p.m. each night and waking up at 8 a.m. every single morning, will help you feel less tired. Now, I don't really need to include the author's example sleep schedule for my purpose. So I might omit these words by using an ellipsis, like this. Notice how there is a space between each period, as well as between the ellipsis and the words on either side. Also, I've made sure that this sentence still flows together as a complete thought and maintains the author's core meaning. Let's do a quick practice. Here is an original quotation and my shorter version in which I've used an ellipsis. However, I've broken one of the rules on our sticky note. See if you can figure out which rule I've broken. Circle your choice on your practice sheet. Press pause while you work and play when you're ready to check your answer. You should have circled A, that I've changed the author's original meaning. The author was trying to explain ways that someone will not have to worry about sleep deprivation. But in my sentence, I wrote that these are ways that would actually make someone worry about sleep deprivation. Changing the author's meaning like this is a huge no-no when quoting. A better way to use the ellipsis would have been to place it like this. In this new version of the quotation, I've kept the information that's most relevant to my purpose, and I've made sure to maintain the author's core meaning. Here's a body paragraph of a persuasive essay that I've been working on. Notice that some of my quotations are a bit too wordy for my purpose and contain some unnecessary information. Take a moment to read the paragraph. As you read, think about what words we might be able to take out of these quotations. Press pause to read and play when you're ready to move on. Okay, here are my first few sentences. We're going to focus on the quotation here. Now, I want to think about possibly omitting some of the words from this quotation. So I'm going to ask myself a couple of questions in order to help me figure out what words I can get rid of. Is all of this information relevant to my purpose? Can I take out any words and still maintain the author's meaning? Well, there are some words in this quotation that are kind of unnecessary. Here's what I think is important from the quotation to support my purpose. First, the idea that students should feel safe at all times, and that they do that by knowing that the information on their phones is not public information. My whole essay is about students and phones at school, so the words in the middle are not really necessary. So I want you to give it a try putting this together. Write this quotation, keeping only the most important information that supports my purpose. Remember, these are the words that we underline. Use an ellipsis to show that you've taken out the words in the middle. Pause the video while you work and press play when you finish. My revised sentence will look like this. Notice how the sentence still flows together without these missing words, and that the author's meaning is the same as it was in the original. Let's try it again with our next quotation. Again, I want to ask myself a few questions before I determine which words to take out, if any. I noticed that there are two ideas contained in this quotation. First, that stereotyping a student based on the information contained on their phone can make it difficult for teachers to treat students fairly. And secondly, that research shows that teachers have a negative bias towards students after they have searched their phones. I don't really need to include both of these ideas in my own paper. I think the most important idea for my purpose is this first one. So this time, I'm going to use an ellipsis after the word fairly. My new sentence will look like this. Did I follow all of the rules with this revision? On your paper, put a check mark next to each rule about using ellipsis that I have followed. Press pause while you work and play when you finish. Are you ready to check your answer? You should have checked all 3 rules. The revised quotation has a space between each period, has the same meaning as the original, and makes sense as a complete thought. Now let's look at our third quotation. This time, give it a try on your own. Keeping in mind the questions that we've been asking ourselves, use an ellipsis to take out unnecessary words from this quotation. Press pause while you work and play when you finish. I wrote my new quotation like this. You might have written yours a little differently, and that's okay. Notice that, again, I made sure to keep the speaker's meaning the same, and I also wrote it so that the sentence still flows together as a complete thought. And now we're done. Take a look at our revised body paragraph. Notice that each quotation only includes the most relevant and important information to support my purpose for writing. Press pause to read and play to move on. Now it's your turn. Read this paragraph and revise it using what you've learned in this lesson. Press pause to work and play to continue. Now reread your own writing and use ellipses to show that you have omitted words from quotations that are unnecessarily long or wordy. Now you know that writers use only the parts of quotations they need to support their ideas. This will make your writing much more concise.